Yeah, welcome back to another episode of the Format Podcast, College Football Wrap-Up Edition. And joining me, of course, is the Format Podcast official college football analyst, my main man, Ryan Lankford, former Illinois Fighting Illini, former Indianapolis Colt, former Saskatchewan Rough Rider, former Winnipeg Blue Bomber, former Ottawa Red Black, former BC Lion. That is our wide receiver and kick return specialist on all levels. What's good, Ryan?
What's going on? What's going on? Glad to be back. How you doing?
I'm doing well, man. Thank you for asking. Man, did we have some games this weekend or what?
We did. We did. We
Ooh,
did.
ooh, man. So before we go ahead and get into these topics here, first thing, you know what we got to do, man. Y'all know what time it is if you're watching. If you're here on YouTube and you haven't already, please make sure you go ahead, click that like, that subscribe, that notification bell. Make sure you're kept up to date whenever we drop new content on the channel. If you want the audio-only version of the podcast, open up your audio podcast platform, hit the search bar, type in The Format Podcast, and we should come right up. If you're enjoying the content, make sure you give us that like, that 5-star review, and drop a comment. All that stuff helps us rise in the algorithm, helps us find more sports fans, helps more sports fans find us. And finally, make sure you write it down, put it in your phone, set an alarm, do whatever you got to do to remember. Saturday nights at 7 p.m. we are live here on the Format Podcast, and we'll give you the opportunity to call in, talk to us, get at me. I love it. I can't. Yeah, Ryan. So, man, listen. Whew. You know what? Before we even get into these topics, because we got some good ones here, I want to ask you. I know it was a little rough for you this weekend, man. But how did you survive the Lankford Bowl, man?
I mean, Illinois put up a good fight, but
Yeah.
Penn State's a great football team, right?
Mhm.
And I think I can take 4-1 right now in the season. Still ranked, still doing well.
Mhm.
These guys are going to be able to bounce back. And I think what's good, and this is what I'm looking at. Sometimes that first loss after being undefeated is a great loss because now it's like, all right, it happened. Now we don't got to worry about trying to stay undefeated for the rest of the
Right.
year. We got to try to fill up all this stuff. We got that loss out. Now let's make the corrections and keep it moving. And I'm hoping that Illinois can do that. They got to buy this weekend, so really get some time to check the tape and be good and be ready to go once they come back to work.
Outstanding. Well, listen, we got some, like I said, we got some great topics here, man. And I definitely was rooting for the Illini this weekend, but it didn't turn out that way, man. So, hopefully next time they play, they'll go ahead and take that back from the Nittany Lions, man. But congratulations to Mr. Lankford on that one.
That's right.
Yeah.
Paul, Mr. Paul.
There you go. I know he got a little bit of bragging rights for the next year or so. So
yeah, he does. He'll hold on. He'll hold on to it for a year, but we'll be back stronger
there
than
you
ever
go.
next year.
There you go. Georgia, Alabama. So, I'm not an SEC guy, but I'm saying I said before this game started, I said I got to watch this game. It should be a good one. And then board just allowing him to go ahead and take that big play shot right down the field on first down. That was incredible. So, what are your thoughts on this game, man? Give me your opening thoughts on what you saw.
Yeah. I got tons of thoughts. It was a great football game. Anyone that
Mhm.
loves football can appreciate this type of
Yeah,
game.
yeah.
I think Alabama really came out hot and looked really, really strong. They are a strong team, and I think that when you jump out on somebody, it's easy for the other team to lay down. And like you said, Beck got his boys together, and they fought back and they played well. Offensively, I think Alabama really dominated in the first half, as we could see. They had no way. The defense had no answer to the
None.
different reads that they have, right? They got the bubble
Mhm.
running on the backside where you can either give the ball or Milrow can keep it and run himself. Like, you can't be
Mhm.
right. He's been in the offense long enough. He's a smart enough player that he can make the correct decision and get at least 5 yards, 10 yards, and can break a big one. So that really happened. So once they got into the locker room, I think Georgia really settled in. Defense made some adjustments. They were able to kind of go with crossers, go with movers, and kind of do a little bit more zone, a little bit more communication, which allowed them to kind of shut down Alabama. And I also think Alabama might have taken their foot off the gas just a little bit naturally,
It appears that way.
because you're up, you're flying, things are moving really quickly. But they were able to kind of turn around and make some plays when it mattered. And I think it was a good game. I think everyone really showed their worth. I give a lot of credit to Georgia for battling back. and still, making some plays and making it a game at the end. Because had Alabama not been so confident and so poised, and maybe if that game was in Georgia, they might not be able to drive down the field and score a touchdown because of the atmosphere. But it's a good game, and I like that they kind of got it up early, and there's a chance that these two teams might see each other again later on in the season.
And that's what we call an instant classic. It really
Instant
was. So let me ask you this, as someone who's been there and done that, how much of a role is Big Mo? And when I say Big Mo, I mean momentum. That's really a thing, isn't it? Because we saw the momentum early. Alabama just, like I said, just blitzed them out of the gate, got off to a huge 28-0 lead at one point. And then we saw when Georgia started to climb back into the game, they started getting on a roll, and just, things were just going well for them, play after play. How much of a role does momentum really play? And if you're on, let's say if you're on the defensive side and the other offense is really rolling, how do you stop that? How do you slow that down?
Yeah, it's hard. Well, I think the biggest thing with momentum is what it does to the mind, right? On whoever side of the ball, right? So if you're on defense, in your analogy, and the offense is just driving and just really just, you guys have no stops, that momentum is helping the offense, and that momentum is mentally starting to go into your mind of like, man, we just can't, what's going on? Doubt starts to creep in. People start doing a little bit. You start thinking a little bit more. You're trying to overcompensate for things. And that's when, trouble can happen. And on the flip side, momentum is good when things are rolling. Milroe got back out there. He said, all right, y'all boys, look, they just scored, but ain't no thing. We're going to go down and do what we got to do to make a touchdown. And what do they do? Play action, threw the deep ball up. Playmaker made a play for touchdown. So I think, momentum is huge, and being in the moment before that helps too. Being in a situation where, hey, we've had to battle back before, or hey, we've been in this situation to kind of do what we need to do to win. And I think that's what happened, how they came out on top.
So, all right. So let me ask you this, right? Ryan Williams is an absolute stud, right? As we know, the kid, as I mentioned, the kid is 17 years old. He had 6 catches for 177 yards in this game. And so, you hear about it. Obviously, he was playing in high school last year against people who will, likely can only dream of being on the stage that he was on. And, if he stays healthy, he'll probably be on the next level as well. So we often hear about the jump from college to the NFL, and you've experienced that. We hear about the jump from high school to college. You've obviously experienced that as well. How big really is that jump? Obviously, I think it's huge at quarterback, but how hard is it to, come into college from high school and to be able to do the things that this kid is doing?
Yeah, it's hard, right? Any player coming out of high school going into college, that itself is a win, right? You can run the statistics and say, hey, all the high school athletes playing out there, all the starters, there's a certain percentage that are going to make it to the collegiate level that first year. Then there's going to be a certain percentage of those guys that make it 3-4 years and make it to the next level. So those numbers get smaller and smaller and smaller. So the challenge is hard. One thing about Ryan is he's a playmaker. He steps up in there. He does what he needs to do. And I can tell by his game, he has fun. And I think ultimately that's what's really going to separate him, is the stuff that he does. Sometimes you're like, he's having fun, right? He's that type of player. He's stopping, he's spinning, he's doing things that you would do in high school. And the fact that he's having success at the next level at a SEC school, coming in and balling. He's got a quarterback who's on his way out, going to the NFL once he's done, who's vouching for him to say, hey, get this guy as the starting lineup. That builds confidence in him, and he's making plays. So he's going to continue being the same Ryan Williams who he was when he was in high school, tweak his game a little bit, and hopefully make it on to the next level. Once he makes it to the next level, which I believe he has the ability to, the NFL game is a lot different. It's changing, right? Receivers are getting smaller. Some receivers are getting quicker, and it really is starting to see how you can get guys on the perimeter, how you can get guys in quick hands. And as long as you got an offensive coordinator who knows how to utilize a guy like that and when to utilize a guy like that, he could be dominating, right? Dominating Kansas City, dominate somewhere in Miami, dominate somewhere where they're running speed sweeps and they're getting guys on the edge and getting people off balance. He's got the perfect build. You send him up to Philly with everyone up there, man, come on now. That's the same type of game. So I'm excited to see how he develops in his game, because there are going to be some NFL scouts that are going to question, okay,
Hmm.
size wise, can he block? Right? Yeah, we can bring you
Yeah,
in and
that's
run these
big.
plays, but we got to get you to block. We got to get you to maybe return some kicks, return some punts. So it's going to be interesting to see how his game really flourishes and continues to grow. But I'm excited to see it. I love rooting for the young guys, and he's a ball player in my mind.
Yep. Get playmakers the football in space. I think that's kind of one of the key things that we see in football at all levels now, and that's the goal, is to get playmakers the football in space. All right, you mentioned Carson Beck, former Florida State Mr. Football, former state champion at Mandarin High School. So Carson Beck, he is a national champion. He obviously backed up Stetson Bennett when Georgia won the national title, and coming into this season, a lot of people had him as the top quarterback on the board. I'm not sure why. Like, he's really good, and
Mm-hmm.
he did show me a lot in this particular game, even though he had a lot of mishaps. Obviously,
Mm-hmm.
4 turnovers, which, you're almost never going to win a game if you have 4 turnovers. However, as I mentioned earlier, this was a situation where he could have folded. He could have shown that he doesn't have it, but he kept fighting. He kept leading his team, and if not for, as you mentioned, just an absolutely incredible play by the young fella and Jalen Milroe, he brings them all the way back, and that would have been, I think, the largest comeback between top 25 teams, I think, ever. I think that's what they said on the game, so that would have been crazy. But um, let me ask you this, right? What did you see from Carson Beck at the quarterback position? Because I heard Colin Cowherd and John Middlecoff, he's former NFL scout with the Philadelphia Eagles. They were talking about it, and they said after watching that game, you can't unsee his horrible first half. And they talked to other guys, scouts currently in the league, and executives, etc. And they're saying that Carson Beck, he took a hit for the way he played in this game. And that was funny because when I watched, I saw the opposite. I saw he really showed a lot in terms of, his determination not to give up and not to roll over. And the last thing I'll mention is I did see, though, questionable arm strength that I hadn't noticed before, right? When he throws the ball outside the hashes and when he throws the ball downfield, it tends to float and stay in the air a lot. He doesn't
Mm-hmm.
seem to have that ability to really put it on a rope or throw that laser that you see a lot of the really good quarterbacks have. And this on the next level, a DB is going to go ahead and take that. So what are your thoughts on what you saw from Carson Beck and his projection to the next level? Because he'll probably end up being a first round pick as long as he doesn't stink it up the rest of the way.
Yeah, I think he's definitely has a bright future and a chance to make it into the NFL. Um, and he's got time to make the corrections, right? This was game 4. Everyone's gonna say, like, hey man, you could have done better, you could have done this.
Hmm.
And he will make those corrections. Now, Alabama gave up a lot of deep balls, which allowed Georgia to come back into the
Hmm.
game.
That's right.
And of those deep balls, he gave his guys an opportunity to catch the ball. And as a quarterback to a receiver, that's really all you want.
Hmm.
Now, would those plays carry over into the NFL? We don't know, right? Different type of drops, different type of play calling, different type of scheme, different type of athletes. But he'll have
Yeah.
time to make those adjustments. He'll have time to make the changes that he needs, and I think he'll get a chance to get drafted. And if he doesn't get drafted, he'll be in someone's camp and fighting for a job.
Hmm.
So I'm excited to see what he can do, and how he responds from this, because this was a tough game to play, right? It was tough to go into Alabama and not have
Hmm.
the same team that you had last year. You had an
Yeah.
incredible
No
tight
Brock
end. You had
Bowers,
some
no Ladd
incredible weapons
McConkey.
that were
Right.
able to, kind of bail him out in situations where
Hmm.
now we need people around to step up. And, some of those guys had to make that decision of, okay, well, who's now going to be the guy? They're looking around, they're down 21-0, like, well, shoot, we don't got them boys anymore. What?
Hmm.
Somebody got to step up. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And so I'm excited to see what he does, and I know he'll be able to translate for sure.
And do you see him being? I know you're not a draft analyst, but from what you've seen and having gone through the process and knowing others who have, do you see him being an early round pick or?
Yeah, that I don't know. I don't know
Mhm.
how the hierarchy will look when it's draft day. Who will get the first
Mhm.
pick? Who will need a quarterback? Who will need this? What what kind of money they got going on? What I
Right.
do know that is if you bring this player in, he's gonna compete. He's gonna give it his best, and he has a chance to make the team to be someone's one, if not a one, definitely someone's backup where he can learn, get the fundamentals down, and become a player in the NFL.
Okay, I hear you. I hear you. Yeah, I've got two guys currently playing the position in college football that I definitely would take ahead of him if I were drafting. But and
Mhm.
that's Quinn Ewers and the guy we're going to talk about next, Shadur Sanders. So, but yeah, that game was an absolute classic, and I thought about you guys while I was watching it. I was like, oh, they must be going crazy over there because
Going crazy, going crazy. First half,
yeah,
my girl
mhm,
chilling, like, "Yep, we up." Text messaging, everyone's coming through, and then Georgia started rolling back, and then it got a
yeah,
little bit more quiet in the house, and
hmm
then it got super exciting. Georgia started
yeah,
scoring, and it was a good game. But Alabama's
hmm
gonna be Alabama, and I'm excited to see that they was able to pull it out. And again,
hmm
I'm interested to see what this will do moving forward. Because like we said, there's a chance that Georgia will play Alabama again,
hmm
and we'll see what happens when that time comes.
Yeah, this is going to be very interesting, especially being the first year of the 12-team playoff, to see how many losses someone can have and still get in this thing. Because I anticipate Georgia getting beat by Texas in about 3 weeks here. I
Mhm,
truly anticipate that. I think Texas has a bye this week. Next week is Red River, and I think Georgia goes to Texas after that.
mm,
And
mm,
Sark's got them guys really playing, man, the
rolling.
horns. But we'll have time to look ahead to that in the following weeks. But it's going to be interesting, though. I do anticipate Georgia having 2 losses on the season, and we'll see what the committee thinks of that.
Mhm,
Although
mhm.
I got to say, I can't, even with 2 losses, I can't imagine a committee would leave Georgia out. And part of that's SEC bias, part of that is they're a really good football team. So we'll see.
Right, right.
Um,
We'll see.
we will see. All right, let's go ahead and move on to the second game here, and this one. Total shocker
Mm,
for me. Total
I
shocker
agree.
for me.
Me too.
We talked about this game last week, and one of the things that I was big on, just being an old school football fan, I'm looking at this thing and I'm saying I didn't believe that Colorado could win this thing because they have a had a lot of difficulty stopping the run, being physical in the trenches, and then uh, I'm sorry, UCF was the number one rushing team in the nation
Mhm,
going into this game.
mhm.
And the exact opposite happened. I was like, wait a
Right,
minute, what?
right.
So UCF comes out and they're flying high and they smoke Colorado. They put 48 on them, 48-21 in the bounce house. And I was astounded by that. Man, it was something. Shadur Sanders doing what Shadur Sanders does, 28-35, 293 touchdowns, 1 pick. Um, and they held UCF to about 200 yards under their per game rushing average. I was thoroughly impressed by that. Now I'm gonna
Mhm.
be honest, I wasn't watching this game snap for snap. They were on at the same time as the Irish, so I was watching Notre
Right,
Dame. But
right.
still, when I was switching over, and I couldn't believe the score every time I switched back to it. I was like, what? Like this
Yeah.
is crazy. Did you get a chance to check out any of this game?
Yeah, and I was kind of, not snap for snap, bouncing around, doing some stuff,
Hmm.
looking at everything. But
Hmm.
from what I could see, Colorado came to play, and I
Oh
think
yeah.
they heard what the talk was about UCF,
Yeah. Yeah, I think
and
they heard me.
yeah, they did, and made the
Yeah.
adjustment.
Mhm.
I really was proud, or really was glad to see these long drives ending with touchdowns. That's what
Mhm.
hurts. You
Yes.
break a defense down and then you score a touchdown, and then
Mhm.
offense gets the 3 and out. They got a punt. Like that's tough sometimes. And I
Yeah,
think
it
that's
is.
what Colorado did. They made some plays. Defense made some plays.
Mhm.
They got, I think, UCF had 3 or 4 different turnovers, and when you turn the ball over, and a team can capitalize off of that turnover on the
Mhm.
short field, like that's a
Yeah.
big difference. So once that happened, it was tough for UCF to kind of get back in the game.
Yeah, I agree. KJ Jefferson, he looked pretty human out there today.
Yeah.
Not today, but on Saturday, 20 of 35 for 284, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks. And you're not used to seeing him throw the interceptions like that. But also, um, this scheme is probably not the most friendly to him
Mhm.
because obviously Gus Malzahn is a really heavy run guy. And KJ Jefferson, he has the size and the ability to run in the quarterback run game, but he's more of a passer. He's more of a passer. But uh, Colorado, man, they really locked in on stopping the run. I can't get over how impressed I was about that. Watching RJ Harvey 16 carries for 77 yards, like That's incredible, man. That is incredible to pretty much dominate a team that has been dominating everyone that they've played at the line of scrimmage thus far, and really, take away their bread and butter. And now when you leave them in a position where they just got to throw, well, that's not their offense, and you take them completely out of what they want to do. And just so impressed. And of course, Travis Hunter continues to do Travis Hunter things. That laying out interception that he caught was crazy. he's
Awesome.
he's crazy.
Awesome. This from the snap of the ball, reading his coverage, doing his first assignment, then knowing football to know that, hey, there's a chance that they're gonna try to dump this pass out, and for him to react and make a play, it's awesome. And he's having fun too. And that's what I love about he's out there, he's hanging out, they having fun. Deion's giving these guys a space to just be athletes and play football. And when you're playing and reacting and not thinking, some magical stuff can happen. And I think that's kind of what they've got going on now.
Yeah, I see that. So they're 4-1 at this point. And we talked about this last season. And again, I'll say, in fairness, I forgot about Utah when I said it, but I really felt like Colorado had a really good opportunity to win the Big 12 this year. And it didn't start out that way. Just looking at, the physicality and the difficulty they were having up front. But now it seems like they're starting to get into the flow. Warren Sapp, Hall of Fame defensive tackle, is the defensive line coach for these guys. So he's got them flying around and playing physical up front. And of course, Deion, he's going to be doing some one-on-one type work with the D-backs, the defensive backs. And he's got Pat Shurmur, former NFL guy, as his OC. And it looks like things are really starting to come together. And, obviously the one guy you can count on is Shedeur Sanders, man. And I'm just I'm thoroughly impressed. And this Big 12 conference is wide open, man. These guys have a legitimate chance to win this thing and possibly get into the playoff. And that would be
we all want to see. We want to see it. I want to see it.
Yeah. I mean, but let's think about it. If they get into the playoff, you go from 0-11 2 years ago into the college football playoff. Like, that's testament to what Coach Prime is able to build and the guys that he has on that team. Now, obviously, next year, Shadeur's gone, Shiloh's gone. What's my guy's name? Travis Hunter's gone. So it's going to be interesting to see how he's able to replace those key cogs, because I'm not a guy who follows recruiting heavily, but I haven't really heard anything about, an A1 top flight quarterback recruit looking at Colorado, or Colorado recruiting one of those guys. So we'll have to see what happens at the QB position, or maybe they raid the portal. Who knows? Deion seems to like that. But they look good, man. They're 4-1. I think they have a bye this week. Then they have Kansas State at home next week. So, Kansas State's a good football team, but hey, if Colorado continues to play the way that they're able to play, they got a chance at this thing, man.
Yeah, they do. And they're, like you said, they got a bye week, so they're on the tape right now. I mean, coaches are on the recruiting trail right now as we speak. They talking to somebody. They're in somebody's ear saying, hey, we just beat UCF. We rolling. We going to come in. We going to handle Kansas State. We got players leaving. We need you to come in. So they're on the recruiting trail, but they're also breaking down film for Kansas State. They're getting ready for that game, because they can win that too. Kansas State being ranked number 20, if they're going into Boulder, like we've already seen, it gets rowdy in Boulder, and when they're there, they can play. So Kansas State's gonna have to come prepared, because if not, Colorado got a chance to go on a roll. I'm looking at the schedule here. They got Arizona, Cincinnati, Texas Tech, and then go to Utah. So they could really, really go on.
They could be rolling by the time they go to Utah.
They could really be up top, and this could get interesting. So I'm excited to see it. I think they got a bye week at a great time, giving them that break. And it's going to be sweet.
I agree. So check this out. We talked about Carson Beck last segment, right? So now I want to go to the guy that I believe is the best quarterback in the country, hands down. And that's Shedeur Sanders. And I am so impressed with this guy. One, his toughness is like beyond description. We saw last year him get hit and get sacked more than anyone in the country. We saw starting this year, he's getting hit. And he is a guy that will stare down that proverbial gun barrel. He will get hit and still deliver a laser strike And so to me, that's so impressive. And he just keeps getting up. Now, obviously, there's only so many of those in your body, especially at the quarterback position. Those guys aren't used to getting hit like that. But to me, that is just that's leadership by example, right? That everyone's not going to have that toughness, but that says a lot to me when your quarterback has that. I think he's got all the skills. He probably doesn't have the biggest arm in the class. That's probably Quinn Ewers, but his arm talent is maybe a step below, half a step below elite. His arm talent is right there. I think he's outstanding at manipulating the pocket. He's got more mobility than we probably would think because he's a pocket passer. And I don't think there's anything at the quarterback position he can't do. He can go through his progressions, go through his reads. It's all there, man. It's all there. And I know that I sound like I'm gushing over the dude, but I said it since last year. I'm so impressed with Shedeur Sanders. Now, if there's any knock, and there's always a drawback. I think some people might say he holds the ball too long because he's looking to make the big play downfield, but that also might be play design, though. You know what I mean? So, I mean, if he's not playing in like West Coast, get it out, 3-step drop, get it out quick. That's clearly not what their offense does. So, your thoughts on Shedeur Sanders, where he stacks up in the quarterback rankings of, the big name quarterbacks in college this year, and what you think he can be on the next level?
Yeah, I'm with you on a lot of that stuff, right? And again, when I can say his only knock, like you said, might be holding the ball. Sometimes, decision making, and when it comes down to it at the next level, what's going to be the challenge for him is how much defenses are disguised at the next level, right? You're going to break the huddle. It's going to look like cover 2. But you're going to send a guy in motion that's going to look completely different. And you got to know, like, hey, well, at the beginning with this read at cover 2, this was my progression. But now that I'm in this progression, I got to look hot. But he'll be able to pick up on that. He'll have a coach around them to kind of teach him what he needs to do, what the playbook is. And once they're able to kind of say, hey, we need you to work on this, I think he's competitive enough to say, okay, let me focus on that. Let me focus on, okay, if it's not there, let me try to run and maybe throw it away. Let me try to slide. Let me try to do these things that might protect my body and give me the longevity to play later. I think someone's going to bring him in. And again, if he gets drafted, again, I'm not a draft scout. I don't know. I would love to see him get drafted. But I would love to see him be in someone's camp where if he's not the starter, he's behind someone who he can learn from, or he's in an offense that appreciates his mobility. Right. A coach that can appreciate the fact that, hey, we can bring this guy in, on 3rd and short to run some college plays, right? To get defense off balances and kind of do some stuff. But he's got the potential to be in there to be a big time player and to play football for a long time. And that's what I'm hoping to see.
I think one of the things that impresses me is I think his learning curve is going to be shorter than many because we know that he's been getting NFL level coaching from the beginning, right? Obviously, he knows how to look and see what defensive backs are doing, right? Because, his dad is arguably the greatest defensive back of all time. I'm sure since, at the beginning of high school, he's been watching film and he's saying, okay, son, key on this when the DB does this, blah, 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 right? So he's training him in what DBs are doing. And now from the offensive side, he's got Pat Shurmur, a former NFL head coach and offensive coordinator. So he's got the opportunity to get NFL level offensive coaching. So I think his learning curve is going to be shorter than most of these guys, other than maybe like we always say, adapting to the speed of the game. That's the big one, right? So I think he's got a great opportunity to have a really good amount of success if the organization that he goes to is, sound. Now, obviously, if he gets drafted high, they won't be great in terms of wins and losses, but hopefully there'll be an organization that's willing to do the right thing in terms of trying to create an infrastructure that will allow him to be successful. Because if you do that, I think he can.
Yes.
Yeah. And probably the only other thing I've got is I didn't like some of the comments that he made after the Nebraska loss. It kind of sounded to me like maybe he was throwing some of his teammates under the bus, or he was doing a little bit of whataboutism when they asked him some stuff. And he was like, well, what about Raiola? I'm like, no. Take a page from, your Andrew Lucks and your Peyton Mannings,
Brady.
Deflect the praise and accept the criticism. Hey, I've got to do better. I've got to put my guys in a better chance to win. I've got to control these mistakes. Man, these guys are so great out here. They're giving me an opportunity to make plays. You know, my guys. So maybe that comes with time. Hopefully that comes with time. But I think that's probably my only other thing. And that's something that he can learn, because that's not like on the field.
That's right.
Yeah. But yeah, the kid is special. But yeah, Colorado, I think, man, they got an opportunity to do something, man. They got an opportunity to do something. And I'm looking forward to seeing it. All right.
Next up, I believe that's me.
All right. Next up, I believe that's me. You know what time it is, Ryan. You know what time it is. Listen, I'm sorry we had to go do it to your boy. We had to give him his first loss of the year. We needed that more than he did, because if we lost that game, it's over for us in terms of trying to get in the playoffs. So it was a tough one. So this was kind of weird, right? So Notre Dame comes out early. They actually muffed the opening kickoff, and then Louisville goes in and scores, and then Notre Dame kind of starts to get it figured out. This is a strange football team, the Irish, man, because they have a very good secondary. They've got good guys. Look at this. Watch this. He thought he got away. He thought, well, peanut punch. Gotcha.
Smart. By 15. 15 knew he was going to do that the whole time.
Right,
Smart.
right. So that's well coached defensively. Riley Leonard, not the greatest passer, but with the way Notre Dame is able to run the football, it creates some opportunities downfield. But yeah, this was a tough game that came right down to the end. But you know, the Irish were able to pull it off. And I got to tell you, I'm really concerned about how many designed runs they're calling for Riley Leonard, unless these are read options and RPOs and he just keeps pulling it for himself, which is possible because, you know, he believes in his athleticism, I suppose. But it looks to me like they're calling a lot of design runs. That's a great grab right there. You ever have one of those? One of those one-handed grabs like that?
Ooh, one-handed, no. not like that. No.
Yeah, those are crazy. But yeah, so, you know, you watch and you say, man, if Riley Leonard keeps running the football the way he is, and don't get me wrong, it's a dangerous weapon in the Notre Dame offense, but if he keeps running the football that way, he's going to get injured. And that's obviously, you know, we don't want that, but that's going to happen. But Louisville, very good team, athletic, good defensively, obviously well coached offensively, but Notre Dame was able to pull it out and take their record to 4-1. So now we're going to see what goes on the rest of the season, man. What were your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, well, this was one of the games that I was bouncing back and forth in between. I was impressed with how Notre Dame played, the energy that they had. They had a lot of, you could see that they were fired up. The fans were fired up. The atmosphere was really loud. They were trying to make it tough for Louisville, right? They were coming in undefeated. They were trying to kind of get back on their horse, if you will, Notre Dame. And I think they were able to, right? It just takes one, like we were talking about last week. You just need one win, and then it's like, oh, all right. Yeah, we're back. Yeah. Let's go. Let's go. So I was glad to see that again. Love Coach Braun, but you know, unfortunately Notre Dame came out and was able to win for them, and it was good.
Yeah.
It was good to see.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you. And like I said, this was a situation where Notre Dame had already had a bad loss on their schedule. So at this point, they pretty much have to win out to have an opportunity to get into the playoff and maybe even to save Marcus Freeman's job. Because, you know, 3 years he's been the head coach there. This is his third season as head coach, but each year he has like a bad, inexplicable loss. And that's not something that you can tolerate, especially the AD didn't hire him. The AD's new. He didn't hire Marcus Freeman. So, and I'm not saying that he would get fired, but, you know, we know how these sports go, right? This is big money, whether it's college football in terms of, you know, FBS and Power 4, or whether it's the NFL or the NBA. This is big money, and these guys don't have a lot of patience anymore when you're talking about the type of money that's on the table. So yeah, I'm watching, and I'm just so Riley Leonard, 17 of 23, 163 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks. I mean, good day, but if you are thinking about trying to beat one of the better teams in the playoff down the road, You got to do more than that, man. That's not going to get it done. Now, I don't know how much of that is Riley Leonard, how much of that is our less than stellar receiving core, how much of that is Mike Denbrock's scheme, or if he's just, scheming what he is able to do based on the personnel, because obviously he was the OC at LSU last year with the Heisman Trophy winner. And obviously Notre Dame does not have a Jaden Daniels, nor do they have a Brian Robinson, right? Nor do they have a Malik Neighbors, right? So you got to scheme differently when you have different personnel. I don't know. How much would you say is, when you're in a situation like this and you're Mike Denbrock, the OC, how much would you say is on the OC? How much of it is on the personnel? Like, what do you think about that in terms of, like, if you had to divvy up a blame pie?
How much is on the OC and how much is on the quarterback, you said?
The quarterback and the receivers, the personnel. Like, how much can, I guess I should say, how much can you do when you know your personnel at certain positions is not elite for you?
Yeah, well, you gotta, and I think as a coach, you gotta find the eliteness in what you got, right? You gotta know with what you're working with, and I think they are still kind of teeter-tottering on what they truly want to do. They know they got a running back that can run the ball. They're trying to decide how much we want to run with Riley. Do we want to give him more RPOs? Do we really want to have designed quarterback 100% runs? Because 13 carries for 52 yards, like that's a lot when you're not really a running quarterback. But then if you are a running quarterback, 52 yards, that's not a lot of yards. You should be getting more if you're a running quarterback. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like, in my opinion, they're kind of in between. And it's a good threat to have that you can run. But at the end of the day, it comes down to the players making plays, right? And I think that's really what it's got to come down to. They don't have, the same receiving core like they had last year when they could just swing it and spread it around. So someone else is going to have to step up and make plays. What's good? It's still early. What's also good? They got to win. So now they can believe that, hey, all right, fellas, we're back rolling. We had some success. We just took down a pretty decent team that came in here and thought they were going to beat us, and they didn't. So now let's just build on this. Let's tighten up some stuff. Let's make up a few corrections that we need to. Limit the turnovers that we got and keep moving forward.
No, I hear that. So I was just going to ask you something and it slipped me. I was going to say, okay, that's right. So kind of back to the last question. If you have, like we're talking about, you have a Riley Leonard who's not the most accurate guy, who's not the best at quickly deciphering the coverage, etc. And you don't necessarily have receivers who are, there's no Ryan Williams here, right? There's none of those kind of guys. How hard is it, would you say, to scheme it up on an offensive from an offensive coordination standpoint to make the reads more easily identifiable for my quarterback and to get guys running in I guess larger open areas to make it easier for my quarterback to deliver if he has accuracy issues?
Great question. So I think it really comes down to play calling and, like you said, the players that you got, right? So getting guys in space. Okay. For example, Alabama was able to get guys in space because they got speed, right? So when you send guys in motion, there's a threat of like, oh wow, this could be a handoff, this could be a speed sweep, this could be a fake. You gotta, those half a seconds that a defender has to think, that can cause the separation. Mesh routes, pick routes, routes where you gotta put stress on certain defenders, where you're targeting a corner, you're targeting a safety. Those type of plays is really how you get open. And then just knowing tendencies, knowing coming into the game, okay, Louisville defense, they're predominantly a zone defense or predominantly a man defense. Okay, these are our man beaters, these are our zone beaters, and knowing when to call those at the right time, right? The playbook is broken down extremely detailed, from the opening plays to what percentage they run cover 3 on second down in the first quarter. Like, they have so many different analogies, and the better you can understand that creates more opportunity for you to call the right play based on probability giving you the chances to open guys up in space. Plus, being able to run the ball, keeping the defense off balance is really how you start opening up space and making room for guys to make plays.
Well, there you have it. There you have it. All right. Well, appreciate that, because that's something I'm sitting here like, okay, you're Mike Denbrock. You know there are certain deficiencies, certain areas we're lacking. The Irish are lacking offensively, so it's yeah, these guys got to make plays, but you have to make it easier on them by scheming guys open and making the reads and everything easier for your quarterback. All right, I got you. All right, let's go ahead before we let you get out of here to a quick week 6 look ahead. Week 6 is another one of those kind of not the most exciting games. And so I ran down the schedule. I was like, okay, this is not great. A lot of teams at buys right about now. We mentioned earlier that Georgia has a bye. Texas has a bye. Oklahoma's got a bye. Notre Dame has a bye. If you look, a lot of these teams have buys this week. So not the best schedule. And these are the two games that I think I am interested in. One, A&M. I really want to see, because Mike Elko, and is outstanding defensive coach. So I want to see what he's going to be able to do against that Mizzou Tigers offense. If he's going to be able to get pressure on the quarterback and maybe take Luther Burden III out of this game, their elite wide receiver. And then the other one is I want to see UCF versus Florida. So quick note with me, UCF, I kind of like them, and I've liked them for a few years now, right? 2017, we saw them go undefeated, and I've said many times, I believe that particular season, the only team in the country that would have beaten them was Alabama. I thought they were that good. They played extremely well. We saw them in the Peach Bowl defeat an Auburn that had beaten Georgia and Alabama that season in successive weeks. And so that was a really good football team. And kind of why I latched on to UCF a bit is because at the time, obviously, they were a group of 5 team. And I hated the fact that, they had a legitimate shot at upsetting the apple cart. But, because they weren't one of the quote unquote big boys, they got left out of the opportunity. That's one thing that's very frustrating to me about college football, right? This whole business of, it's almost like to me, it's almost the converse of this whole thing of the regular season means so much, but it really doesn't, because you could theoretically, right, you could go 12 or 13-0, but because you're not one of the big boys, you don't get an opportunity to test your mettle at the higher level, right? Or if you do get that opportunity and you go up there and you get smoked, well, then everyone's going to say, well, they didn't deserve to be there.
Yeah,
no, that's not
this
the
is
case.
why.
No, that's BS though, because and I did a show on this maybe last year sometime. I heard Colin Cowherd saying something along those lines, and I went back and I looked at all the Super Bowls that have happened in the NFL. About half of the Super Bowls have been blowouts. So you don't get to go back and say, well, that team didn't deserve to be there because they got blown out. No, they earned their way there. They got a butt cutting, but they earned that butt cutting, right? They earned that opportunity to get that. And so I don't like that at all. So anyway, that's my roundabout way of explaining why I've kind of liked UCF since then. When I was in school, in journalism school at UNF, shout out Ospreys. In 2019, I had the opportunity. I was blessed enough to go down and cover UCF versus Stanford. Tiger Woods was on the sideline. He's Stanford alum. And I watched that game. And by the way, the bounce house, I think it only seats less than 50,000, but the bounce house is crazy. They call it that for a reason. When they get to rocking in the bounce house, man, it is wild. But, so I'm kind of a fan of UCF because I just love the fact that they were, David to the proverbial Goliath of college football, right? And so with this UCF Florida matchup, they were begging Florida for years, right? When they were kind of really, UCF was peaking, like, hey, give us the game. Florida ducked that. They didn't want any part of it because I guess they figured, they had nothing to gain. If they beat them, well, you beat the little guy. If you lose, you lost to the little guy, right? And then a couple of years ago, they played them in the bowl game. UCF beat them. And then I think they got a three game split, but I don't think, if I'm not mistaken, they got 2 in the swamp and 1 at a neutral site. They do not want to go to UCF to play there. And I'm like UCF trying to build a program too, But so I'm really anxious to see how the Knights bounce back from, that whooping that they took at the hands of Coach Prime last week. And we know this is not the best Florida team. Billy Napier, he's in big trouble as the head coach there. He's probably going to be out after this season. So we got two teams that probably feeling a little bit of desperation, man. What are your thoughts on this game? And first, are you interested to see it? And if so, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm interested to see it. One, because UCF is, like you said, is a good team. Like I was more surprised, or I thought they were going to put up a better fight against Colorado this past week.
Yeah.
I'm excited to see them play Florida, and very excited to see them play Florida in Gainesville.
Yeah,
that's going to be exciting too, just because the Swamp historically is a tough place to play. Period. Doesn't matter if you're the best team or the worst team. It's tough to play in Gainesville. And it might be hot down there. And, UCF is used to it, but the Swamp heat, all those people on top of you, it's different. It's a different environment. So I'm excited to see how they respond. So that's one of the games that I've got circled. Illinois has an off week, so I don't really have too much with Illinois. I do have Duke and Georgia Tech circled. Duke is undefeated. Georgia Tech beat Florida State. Now, again, not the same Florida State, but Georgia Tech looked good. And Duke is undefeated. And I'm always kind of looking at the teams that are undefeated to see how they can maintain that. And Duke feels that. Duke feels that, hey, we're undefeated. Everyone's coming for us. Anyone can be the best. So those are two games that I've got. Another game that I've got too is where did I put it? Auburn at Georgia. Now,
really,
I do. So,
okay, tell me about that.
Georgia, I think Georgia's going to have to come out and play sound football, because Auburn, when they get rolling, sometimes Auburn can play some football. Like, you got to be careful when you play against Auburn, because Auburn has the ability to kind of turn it on and sneak up on you when you least expect it. And this is a game that Georgia might have this mindset of like, hey, yeah, we just came off of Alabama. We're going to handle Auburn. They're not ranked, but this is still SEC football, right? Now they are home and they're in Athens. So it's going to be, Georgia, it's going to be what they're used to. But if Georgia can get out and come out hot the same way that Alabama came out on them, Auburn will have no chance of coming back. But if Georgia comes out and they kind of sleepwalk and Auburn hits a few big plays and maybe gets a big punt return or some momentum gets rolling, Georgia's gonna have to come through and make some plays and do what they're expected to do.
That's really interesting. I saw that, and I didn't even blink. I'm like, Georgia is going to monkey stomp these dudes.
Yep. But ultimately, I think Georgia's going to be able to handle it. But if they start sleepwalking, that's when you can kind of see teams start sneaking back. Kentucky's done that to multiple teams lately. They hang around, and the next thing you know, Kentucky wins. Like, wait, what? They won? They beat who?
That's right.
SEC.
Yeah, no, you're right. I'm surprised that Georgia didn't make sure they got a bye before Texas. That's interesting.
Yeah.
They like to do stuff like that. I'm surprised they. That's or no, they don't. 5th, 12th.
Wow, that's a good one too.
So they play Texas on the 19th. So that's 2 weeks out.
SMU. That could be a good one too. SMU is 4-1. Louisville's 3-1.
Right.
That could be a good one too. That's at 12 noon on ESPN.
Yeah, it's always interesting to see how teams react in these bounce back games. So and this is the beautiful thing about a 12-team playoff, man. Guys got more to play for. It's not one of those situations where you can lose one and it's pretty much a wrap for your season. So I think that actually adds some intrigue to the regular season, whereas a lot of people were saying that maybe it takes away from the importance of the regular season in college football. I think it does the opposite, and I like that.
Also, looking at it again, Ole Miss, South Carolina. Interested to see that one. Interested to see how Ole Miss bounce back.
Yeah,
that was not expected on their part.
No, I didn't expect it either. But I think Lane Kiffin's going to have his guys ready to go. That's a really good football coach, man. I really think so. And you know what is also the amazing thing? How many 4-1 teams or undefeated teams are unranked. So, as the season continues to wind down, it's going to be really interesting to see at the very least how the top 25 works itself out. And then again, man, this 12 teams in the 12-team playoffs, I absolutely freaking love this. Now,
Me too.
again, I would prefer if it was more like the NFL, right? You win your games, you make the playoffs, and then you go on. But
Right.
obviously, too many teams for that to be the case. And so, you've got this situation with the committee. But let's see if the committee does their job this time. But at the
That's
same
right.
time, the powers that be hold a lot of weight, right? The SEC, the
Mhm.
Big Ten, and kind of everybody else, right? So, yeah, it's gonna be good. I'm looking forward to it. But yeah, I think the games are going to get better moving into week 7, and obviously next week we'll talk about that. But yeah, this is this is an easy week when it comes to college football. But like quick preview, week 7, you got Ohio State at Oregon. Like that's going to be great, right?
Ooh.
Penn State at USC. That's going to be great. So you've got some good ones. You've got some good ones there. So I'm definitely looking forward to that week 7 slate. But we'll see. Florida at Tennessee. That's always big, even when one of them's not good. Ole Miss and LSU. I mean,
Mm.
you've got some games coming up
Mhm.
down the line on the schedule. But yeah, we'll see what happens. But we got to get through week 6 first. And and I'll tell you, I am rooting selfishly for A&M, right? Because
Yeah.
as long as A&M keeps winning, that helps Notre Dame, because
Yep.
obviously Notre Dame went down there in the opener and got that win. So you want A&M to continue to win. For instance, Northern Illinois, who upset Notre Dame in week 2, they haven't won since. So it's like, are you kidding
Yeah.
me? Not only did you lose to a group of 5 team, you lost to what appears to be a bad group of 5 team. So
Yep.
it just it makes it even worse. So we got what we got, man. But yeah, I think we'll leave it right here, Ryan. As always, man, thank you for joining me. Really appreciate you. Appreciate you
Yes, sir.
Sharing your expertise, your experience, all that, man. Thanks so much.
Yes, sir. Always, always glad to be here.
Yes, sir. So look forward to seeing you next week to talk some more college football. And obviously, if you're watching, if you're still here, you made it to the end of the video, really appreciate you. Make sure you hit that like, that subscribe, that notification bell. And other people who want to hear kind of different voice than the mainstream sports media, make sure you go ahead and share the podcast with them. We really appreciate that. It means a whole lot. And we out. Peace.